Well, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. I think we'll be joined by more as we go. Zoom webinar always takes a little bit of a time to allow everybody in, but welcome to those of you who are joining us now. This Innovation Forum webinar, we're going to be looking at food and beverage packaging and how innovation drives long-term value creation. I'm Ian Welsh, and I'll be your host for the next hour or so. Food and beverage companies are facing mounting pressure to address packaging and food waste and the challenges of meeting regulatory requirements whilst maintaining product safety and cost efficiency. In a sector where delivering against targets for healthy, safe products and reducing waste is now ever more important, forward-thinking companies are asking, does their packaging match their commitment? We have a great panel to help frame the conversation. We have Silvana Velasco, Head of Packaging R&D and Procurement at Adilia, Lewis Barnes, Head of Packaging R&D Europe at Tropicana Brands Group, Monica Battisia, Group Sustainability Manager at Tagleaf Industries, and Alina Marm, Head of Global Sustainability and Circular Economy at Seekwerk. Welcome to you all. And my thanks to Innovation Forum's Leo Jow for bringing the panel together. I will turn to the panel very shortly, but we do want to hear from you all. Please be thinking about the points and questions that you would like me to put to our experts and write them in the Q&A box on your Zoom window. Please note your name and organization when putting your question. You can, of course, like other questions by clicking the thumbs up, and the more likes, the greater the chance that I will put that question to the panel. We are recording the webinar and we'll share the recordings with everybody in due course. Okay, let's get cracking. Silvana, welcome to the webinar. I'm interested to hear a bit about the challenges that you're facing around packaging. So let's start off. Tell us a bit about Idelia and what your packaging requirements are.
Good afternoon, everybody. So in Idelia, which is a Spanish-based company, we have a wide range of packaging materials and solutions because we sell different products from chocolate powder, chocolate spreads, biscuits, snacks, and then we have a really wide range that includes glass containers, flexible and rigid plastic, doy packs, flow packs, paper sachets also, small and big cardboard boxes, and what is very important at the moment also, point of sale displays. So as you can see, we have, as I was saying, no, a wide range of packaging materials. Therefore, we work and we discuss all those projects with different partners, different suppliers, a lot that are local from Spain, but also some European players that are leaders in their areas. And regarding Ian, what you were discussing about the challenges, we will go forward later, but just to start a bit, I think the main challenge for us at the moment is how to combine, on the one hand, the innovation that any company has to ambition, this innovation together with the difficult context in terms of costs that we have, not only packaging, but also raw materials. And as a third part, sustainability, which we all, I'm sure we discuss that every day. So for me, and we will develop on the following hour, those are the three main challenges all together.
Okay, let's just come back perhaps to challenges in a sec. But in terms of your packaging requirements, how are they evolving? What is the change looking like for your packaging requirements?
Yeah, so as you can imagine, we have a lot in plastic, and the evolution, no, that we are pressured, let's say, to move is to move more to cardboard, to paper, no? And we've seen packs on the market that have moved, especially no flow packs from plastic to paper. However, we have some restrictions and some difficulties in terms of barrier. I would say that one of the main limitations. And another evolution that we are doing is in terms of material contain, recycling. So I think that's one of the main targets that we all have for the next years. And I think the evolution is being driven by all the sustainability targets. However, keeping in mind our costs target. So I would say moving out from plastics, what we have in plastics and in glass also reducing, as you can imagine, the weight, the thickness, but an important watch out here without impacting the added value that we give to consumers. In Idelia, we are a company that we believe in brands. We have very iconic brands in the Spanish market, Colacao and Nocilla, that are leaders in cocoa powder and in chocolate spread, and therefore the added value that we give to consumer is very high, very important, and we cannot jeopardize this position by really going much further with downgrading or weight reduction really. So that's a very careful way that we have been working these sustainability projects, keeping in mind the consumer all the time. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, and thank you for outlining the challenges there as well. How is regulatory shifts? I mean, that's obviously something that's happening right now, including the plastic and plastic waste regulation, extended producer responsibility. How are these impacting you and your packaging requirements going forwards?
Well, we know everybody knows about the PPWR. We have a long way to go, no, till 2030. And I think it's a way we will need to follow, prioritizing really what's more important in terms of calendar, no, in terms of priorities, and also merging that with the availability of materials, of recycling, because at least I can speak for the Spanish situation. It's different, I guess, and we will hear later probably Luis discussing about that in the European, no, the companies that have a more European situation. But in Spain, all this regulation, it's still being handled and being evolved by the government, no? All all the scraps companies, and I would say that we need to work together with them to be able, no, to include in our materials all the recycling needed, and finding also the partners in terms of suppliers that will want to work with us in specific projects. And I would say here one of the big things, no, that as a food company we have in the radar is the recycling material for food contact. So we know as an instance, PET can be recycled and can be food contact. However, the rest of polyolefins, polypropylene, polyethylene, we can't use them recycled for food contact. So that's quite a barrier for us. We have been discussing with some of the suppliers already this issue. I know there are some different views on the topic. Probably we can discuss that later with the panel. Um, and I think that these objectives that we need to achieve in 2030, most of them I would say are feasible. They need, no, also some implication and from all the company. It's not only packaging, it's not only regulatory that needs to care about it. There will be a lot of discussion and a lot of let's say project management with marketing, with sales, and even with the supply chain. Because packaging sustainability, what we've been discussing now over the last year here in Idelia, is that's not only about our team, it's about all the company, and we need to see it like an opportunity really, and consider our packaging of the future, not only the very innovative one or very cost efficient, but also very sustainable. And I think that that can be combined.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed. Lots to come back on there, Savannah. But Lewis, perhaps I can turn to you. Same question. So, for Tropicana, what are your packaging requirements?
Yeah, thank you, Ian. So within Tropicana Brands Group, we have a portfolio range of NFC juices across the brands of Tropicana, Naked, and Capella. So Tropicana is widely recognised as the UK's #1 juice brand and is considered amongst the top 50 most loved brands within the UK. We know we have a great product, and our packaging plays an important role in not only providing the necessary barrier requirements, but to also add to the premium experience that our consumers expect. So within the UK, our packaging portfolio consists of uh, PET bottles for single serve. We have cans for our lightly sparkling juice, and also cartons for our take-home multi-serve. Within packaging R&D, we have the conflict of how we drive sustainability and productivity without compromising on the overall quality, and also to add differentiation to our competitors and private labels. One of our challenges is to have the balance of a premium brand and consumer needs versus productivity and sustainability. When we look at the overall spend on packaging, which is about 10 to 15% of the overall cost of goods, it's a relatively small percentage of the spend, which includes product and our manufacturing costs. For example, the cost of a label within this packaging spend is about 5%, which is about 0.6% of the total cost of goods spend. So what are the real benefits in a change in label specification? That gives no real productivity or sustainability benefits, yet it plays an important touch point and impression with the consumer.
Okay, so talked a bit about challenges there. What are the challenges that you're facing in evolving your packaging?
Sure. So we live in an ever-changing and challenging world and are always adapting and evolving to meet the trends and needs of our consumers. Within the UK, the single household rate has increased 12% over the past 10 years, of which the over 65s make up half of this population. This poses a challenge as consumer buying habits change to making more frequent and smaller shops. Larger packs may not be relevant for these consumers as they can struggle for space in the fridge and may not be able to consume a large pack within a few days. We also have the cost of living crisis, as all consumers are now making more conscious decisions on their spending. We are at risk of our consumers buying our brands less often or trading down to cheaper, lower quality juices from private labels, or worst of all, exiting from the juice category altogether. So we've solved this issue with the launch of a new 500ml carton last year. This new pack size allows consumers to purchase and consume a smaller volume of juice, meeting their needs in terms of consumption and price. It also helps with sustainability as there's less juice wasted.
Yeah, but it's going to put up your impact in other ways, isn't it? Because you've got more in smaller packaging. It's going to be more expensive to ship around. It'll be heavier relatively terms, or is that not the case?
And that's actually the opposite. So in terms of shipment, due to the smaller pack size, we can get more on a pallet. So the transport costs are much reduced. And in terms of secondary packaging and tertiary packaging, there's more units. So the cost of other packaging comes down with a higher number of selling packs, consumer packs.
Okay, thank you. And so regulatory shifts, we talked a bit with Savannah about that. How are you engaging around PPWR and the EPR?
Yeah, sure. So for us, being predominantly in cartons, what's really important for us is the new OPRL logo for cartons, which comes into force on 1st of April in next month. This allows 100% of UK households to recycle their cartons at home. We believe that this drive will bring down the cost of the EPR fees for our cartons as the recycling rate increases and will be widely available.
And what about PPWR?
Yeah, so we've got many challenges on shrink multi-packs, which will be hopefully making the transition to cartons to cardboard secondary packaging.
Okay, thank you. Well, loads of interesting points there, and loads we can follow up on. But thank you very much indeed. Do be thinking, audience, of your questions. Use the Q&A function, as I said earlier, and I'll use that to put to our panelists a little bit later on. But thanks very much indeed. Monica, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Perhaps you can just start by giving us a very quick introduction to what Tag Leaf Industries does.
Good afternoon, you all, and thank you, Ian, for the question. So my name, Monica Battistella, as you said, I'm covering the position of Global Sustainability Manager for Tag Leaf Industries, which is basically a global manufacturer, because we are present in all the regions. So it's Europe, it's South East Asia, it's Middle East, and it's the Americas, with our production plants producing BOPP films. So we are in the flexible industry, and not only PP, but we also have a brand of products which is bio-based and biodegradable. So it's meeting the requirements of compostability, basically both industrial compostability and domestic compostability, so home compostable. So this is just a very brief introduction of what we've been doing, but happy to, let's say, to comply and to comment on what is being already mentioned by Silvana and Lewis about the transition in, let's say, in the change of the packaging in the last year. There was one aspect that Lewis mentioned about the need to work on the packaging so that the packaging can actually contribute to help and save on food themselves. So he's been talking about juices and reducing on the size of the packaging to facilitate also the use and let's say a better consumption at consumers' end. I think that the main function of packaging that we tend to forget, because we are mainly focused on other aspects of packaging, but it's there because basically it's meeting the primary function, which is protection. And it's protection along the value chain, and it's also the role of packaging to allow for the final consumer to actually enjoy the product with the same properties from the moment this has been introduced up to the point where the consumer is sitting at home and actually eating and drinking the food and the drink itself. So the primary function of packaging is that of protection. Whatever material you're considering, there's a place and there's a use and there's a function for each material in the world of packaging. And there's a perfect place for them. We have been witnessing in the last year, I would say, a journey which has not ended and probably it will never end, which is a journey towards sustainability. You call it for regulatory reasons. We've been talking about a PPWR. So on one side, there's a kind of legal direction, which is asking all the stakeholders in this industry to reconsider and rethink their packaging in a way that it becomes finally, if it is not already, compliant with the essential requirements of the PPWR. But there's also an aspect which is requested by the sustainability itself. So we started already back prior to 2020 talking about circular economy, the importance of keeping the valuable material in the loop in a way that we put valuable material in the market through our packaging, and it remains. If it is good, if the design is correct, it can actually be recycled and go back to being valuable material afterwards. we strongly believe in this journey and this option, and I've brought here a nice example of what has been done some years back. This is a packaging which was made together. It's a collaboration, actually, indeed. Made in Australia some years back with Kit Kat, with the converter, which was Amcor, with the recycler, with the municipality. And the reason why we were part of the project and this closed loop was actually to prove the Prime Minister in Australia that if packaging is properly collected and treated, it can actually be sorted, recycled, and then go back to a new packaging. So in that case, we were talking about chemical recycling. We have the news lately that finally there's the approval, at least for the PET. There was an agreement on the mass balance allocation for PET, and we hope that this is also the basis for future discussions for polyolefin, which is much needed in order to achieve the targets of PPWR in the future when talking about recycled content. So this is just an example of our commitment and our engagement along the value chain. We try to support our customers not only in redesigning their packaging if it's not recyclable according to the existing guidelines, making it recyclable with our contribution, but the journey includes also, as I said, sustainable aspects, such as the use of recycled content, such as the use of alternative material, which is not fossil-based. So thinking about renewable material. How does that resonate with the final consumer? Well, using different raw material, having a PCR content, and using, as I said, material which goes back to renewable sources speaks to the consumer. It's just a matter to find the right wording and the right storytelling for the consumer to understand the value behind it. And I have here some other examples, which I believe this is a glass jar where we only contributing because of the label. So it's a tuna jar, okay? So it's a nice product, and this packaging also won a prize because the label was made in a mass balance approach with ocean-bound plastics, which means that plastic, which was basically very close to the ocean, at least 50 kilometers prior to entering the ocean, which was not properly managed, has been collected to prevent it standing up in the ocean. It has been recycled, and we have used specific type of resin to create a label which goes onto a jar which contains tuna. So it's the quality of the tuna, which is combined with the concept of making a labels which is made with ocean-bound plastic, so to prevent the littering of the ocean, which is the environment of the fish. So it's a storytelling behind, and this is our position, helping our customers in creating the storytelling, in differentiating themselves on the shelf and in the market, and being compliant.
Thank you, Monica. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit about the barriers to delivering these innovations then. I mean, I'd imagine that cost is going to be a significant one to scale up. So talk us a bit about, the barriers to these exciting innovations that you've been talking about.
Well, in the use, of course, of special raw material, there is a difference in cost, of course, because of all the system. I mean, somebody is spending efforts in the collection, in the sorting, and the recycling. So there's additional costs here as it is. Okay, so this is one thing. And there's a target, which is, Silvana was mentioning that there's a long way to go till 2030. For something, yes, for some things such as the PCR content, for instance, it's a long way to go. Probably it would have been better to anticipate a little bit on this target to facilitate and to trigger a little bit investments in this industry. For other aspects, such as the redesign, it's not a long way to go. This is based on our experience. Why am I saying this? We see that there are companies which need to redesign their packaging, and they are using substrates, or let's say packaging design, which goes back to 50, 40 years ago, which means that also their machines, their wrapping machines, their packaging machines are not, brand new state of the art. So the big challenge there is to use new substrates, new design products, new design solutions in machines that are just not ready to deal with the new substrate. So this is definitely, we see as a barrier, as an obstacle. So it's the efforts that you need to put there, the time that you need to focus to validate the new solution. You need to fine tune the productivity on your machines. You need to dedicate people that maybe are 100% focused on validating the new results. In case of food, you even have the additional efforts that if you need barrier for your foods, for your products, you need also time to validate that the food stays the same within the 12, 18, 24 months that you are guaranteeing when you're putting your product out in the market. But the main barrier, as far as we can see, is given by the fact that 2030 for something is tomorrow, for other things maybe it's too late in time. And so financially, not everybody is ready to, to put the money for making the difference today.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks, Monica. Alina, love to be acquainted with you. Thanks very much for joining us today. Give us a very quick intro to the work of Seagwork, and then I'm interested in hearing about how the challenges that we heard from Silvana and from Lewis resonate with what you're seeing in the sector. Alina.
Yep. Thank you for having me. So we talked about differentiation at the point of sale. This is really where Siegwerk comes into the picture traditionally, because we produce printing inks and coatings for packaging. So if we talk about the brand image, this is always center stage in design of the packaging. However, there's sort of the hidden aspect of inks and coatings, and that's all about functionality in terms of how to create recyclable packaging that has the barrier properties that are required, how to create ink formulations that don't hinder the recycling process. Yeah, so even though it's only a small part of the packaging, so the 3%, I think, especially in the flex spec space, is a good thumb of rule, it can have an immense impact on the functionality of the packaging, especially when we're talking transition towards circularity. I mean, there were a lot of points that Lewis and Silvana mentioned in terms of requirements, and I think one of the main parts I want to pick up on is the functionality aspect, because at the end of the day, the packaging still has to be functional. How do we feed into this? This is, of course, sort of printed barriers. If you think about moving to a paper substrate, you don't want to add another layer of plastic on top of it. So how can you actually create a packaging with, for example, a printed barrier if you switch to paper, but also if you stay within the plastic space, you have the same challenges, because the substrates provide usually less barriers than they did before, or you have to reduce the multi-material structures. And then also, if we look at sort of the ink formulation, there's a few parts that we don't want in ink. So we help together with the brands to decide, okay, how can we change the ink systems without impacting cost, speed of printing, and so forth, and of course maintaining that crucial point of differentiation at the point of sale. Maybe sort of beyond the technicalities, I think one part I found really interesting in the conversation, and it came out here and there, is how innovation and risk perception and management has actually changed in the past years, at least from my perception. And I know in the past, sort of the suppliers to the brands, and I know technically when Siegwerk had a few cooperations, we were all about trying to put prototypes on the market together with other players, often together with the brands, with the converters, to showcase that this innovation is possible, let it be to governments that would then invest in the infrastructure, so in the example that Monica mentioned, or to convince a brand to say, you know what, this packaging, you can trust this packaging. And this is sort of trying to lead innovation, packaging innovation. I have the feeling now with the PPWR, everybody's very focused on 2030. And at times I have the feeling we almost lost a bit of this leading attitude to really bring stuff into the market. And everybody's waiting sort of for the final design guidelines. And the perception has now moved to how to mitigate risk within this regulatory framework. And of course, that also requires innovation. But yeah, from pushing very proactive, I think there has been a bit of a shift also. So let's wait and see, and then respond to the regulatory requirements, which, now I come back to risk, can be a risk in itself, because if everybody waits until 2028 and then says, now I'm ready to go, there's going to be a huge shortage in the entire supply chain on experts, machine time, raw material, even potentially. So I think as an industry, if we think about innovation and de-risking it, we sometimes probably forget a little bit about the PPWR and go back to sort of this collaborative systems approach to think about, okay, what really makes sense and how can we push for this, and then also make sure that, of course, it is compliant and fits into the regulatory landscape.
Okay, thank you. Audience, I can guarantee you right now that if you put a question, it'll get asked. I promise you. So do think about your questions and stick them into the Q&A box, and I'll come to them very shortly. Alina, I wonder if you could just give us a bit more detail on how you're working and collaborating to provide solutions to the challenges we've heard. I mean, how do you keep the solutions coming and new things, new products?
Yeah, I mean, there are two. I mean, in general, in innovation, two pathways. So one is sort of, okay, we try to understand the overall market needs and market trends. There are very common denominators, no matter which converter, which brand you talk to. Barriers is one of these big parts. And then we sort of try to create products around it. And then we put them into the market in prototypes first, but then, of course, trying to then have like real machines set up and work the scaling part. The other thing, which I also think is equally important, is innovation from concrete challenges in the market. Like if a brand approaches us and says, we would really like to pack this tea bag in a paper sachet, but we're really struggling with XYZ. Why is this really interesting? Because suddenly you can apply this systems approach, really this value chain approach, because you can start asking, well, the barrier requirements that you set into the requirement sheet, where did they originally come from? Like, how does your transport and logistics actually look like? Are there maybe markets that you're selling into that are less prone to humidity that we could launch the product first and then sort of move to other markets? And then, of course, together with other co-suppliers and the converter, really come up with a system solution that then, if we look at innovation for purpose and innovation also in terms of cost competitiveness, often works out really, really well. And yeah, once you have that concrete challenge, then thinking about other use cases usually comes by itself. But let me just add one thing. Both of those are very time consuming. And that's why I just want to stress again, we have to really take these transitions seriously, also in a timely manner, because everybody who's part of innovation from the first idea to bring it to market, I think everybody had a project where they were thinking, oh, this is going to be fast, 2 years, 3 years. And then 4 years later, you look at the project, you finally made it over the finish line. And this is also part of our innovation reality.
Thanks very much. And thank you to we have some questions coming in. Great, thank you. We'll turn to them very shortly. What are barriers to success? I mean, you've talked about a lot of different types of solutions and how you're working with your customers and others to develop them. But what are the barriers that you're coming across at the moment?
Yeah. So let's say everything except, and that's sort of the holy grail for paper, is the oxygen barrier. So this is still for plastic, for films, yes, but for paper, that's sort of the holy grail. So of course you have water vapor, moisture, oxygen, UV, especially if we talk about sleeves, for example. So the whole spiel, so to speak, because essentially all those barriers get lost to some extent in those transitions. For film, it's a little bit better because, of course, you can add barriers into the film properties itself. But if we talk about switching to paper, I mean, even an Amazon bag, if it sits out in the rain for 2 hours, it needs some kind of barrier for your packed good not to take a hit.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm sure we've all had Amazon goods have been
Sorry, I didn't want to bash Amazon, but everybody probably knows this
other
example.
other international companies that deliver things are available
Exactly.
as well. Well, thanks very much indeed. Okay, I will now turn to our panel, our questions rather. Laura Han asked the first question, so I'll put that to our panel. And the questioner asks if there are any specific examples of government programs or policies that have really helped move into more sustainable packaging solutions. Savannah, why don't I ask you that? So, examples of government programs or policies that have really helped you develop more sustainable packaging solutions.
Okay. So in Spain, no, we have had in parallel to Europe some regulatory and some policies. The reality is that in some cases the policies and the programs in Spain have gone further than the Europeans, and in other cases, European policies and regulatory has gone further. So actually, the practical thing, the conclusions are that we need to cover both. So when we have a regulatory target, that makes company, normally okay, we need to fulfill that. And that really shakes, if you want, a bit the company, the teams, no? And I think that's good, actually. That places many challenges and many problems, but that's good because that's when, no, the brains go like 200%. And the good ideas come in those moments. I would say that from the Spanish point of view, just having to comply every year the declaration of all the materials, no specification of each single packaging that we use, etc., has make us wonder, no, whether there are other solutions for our packaging, why we are using specific material and not another one. So Laura, I'm not giving you any program or policy specific because I think all of them have no made us think out of the box and made us wonder really why we were having specific packagings. And I think that's the question, no, that this sustainability roadmap or journey that we have, that's the opportunities we can look for because they are not easy, but we need to look for. And in that sense, I think we really have to dedicate much time, not only let's do the minimum to overcome, no, these policies, these regulatory, but also have deeper conversations on materials we are using, why we are using them. Would we could put on the table some very different material and talk to marketing, talk to sales, and see whether all together we can find better solutions. Actually, I have just a quick example. We had a big glass container for chocolate spread that was heavy. It was fragile, no? Because of it was glass. Um, yeah, we were having a big cost on it, and in 2022, when the big gas crisis and energy crisis arrived, we were on the one hand very pressed in terms of material cost, but also in terms of supply. So making the long story short, we ended up designing a packaging that is PET, not anymore in glass, PET, which you can say, well, it's plastic. Yeah, but it's less weight, more lighter. It's better for the consumer because it's the functionality, no, that we were talking before is better, and therefore it's a project that really gave us quite a change in sustainability, quality, supply, cost, and it was because really we had a strong problem on that. So that's my no learning, let's say. let's look those opportunities that are in there, and it takes time, effort, and lots of people
Thank you.
compromise. But yeah, we'll get there.
Okay, thank you very much. Alina, I'll come back to you in a sec, but Lewis, if you want to come in.
Yeah. So within beverages, I think June 24, we had the new tethered closures came on. So primarily to reduce litter and to increase the recycling rate by retaining the cap within the PET bottle or carton. Now, at first, the tethered closures weren't the best. They were of the slitted design. However, because it's now a consumer need to improve the experience, our cap suppliers have all moved across from slitted to molded caps, which now improve the consumer experience by locking into place. And I think having that as a EU like blanket like legislation, it allows everyone to move together. And without that legislation in place, I don't think many brands would choose to have tethered closures. So yeah, that's important for us.
As a consumer, I agree. They were really awkward for a while. They seem to be getting a bit better. But thank you, Lewis. Alina, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, maybe just with two very concrete examples on the question that Laura had. I think number one is, and taking us a bit away from recyclability, is on the human rights side of things. So Germany released one of the probably most stringent due diligence laws for human rights in your own operations, and especially the supply chains. And for us as a company, that really was the trigger to look at human and labor rights in our supply chains as one of the first inks and coatings companies, and to be very open about the fact that there are issues. There are the same issues and similar issues that we have when we talk about purchasing the raw materials for the packed good. And without this regulation, I am very sure it would have been much more difficult to put this really important topic. If we talk about sustainable packaging, it's not only the end of life, it's also the people in the life cycle. It would not have been that prominently on the agenda. The other example, and Louis, you probably know that better than I do, is the plastics tax in the UK. So if you look at the successful prototypes in the market of ocean-bound plastic that Monica mentioned, of sort of new innovations like de-inking at recyclers, it's not a coincidence that a lot of this is happening in the UK because there is a clear financial incentive. You can always discuss if it's high enough, but it's there. You see it in the market development. So I think policy can have a real positive impact, and we should not forget that, even though we're all sometimes very frustrated about the details of its execution, but it has a huge potential.
Thank you. Monica, do you want to come in and talk about any specific government policies that you've seen most helpful?
Well, I must repeat what has already been done. I must say that prior to 2020, already the discussion, the focus on the circular economy was very high, but it was more, with the exception of some initiatives like it was mentioned, the plastic tax in UK and the plastic tax even in Spain. So discussion even in Italy, which did not happen and is not at the moment planned to happen until X time. But I would say that the focus on the circular economy, and specifically not that much I would say, well, not so much the regulation, but the attention that media gave to the problem of packaging and littering of packaging was the real trigger where we actually saw the intention of the company to change direction and starting moving, asking to redesign their packaging and support to find out for new solutions. Looking at the existing guidelines in the market, so what the associations were already doing, so associations like, CFLEX, like Recyclas, and then all the plastic pacts in the different countries which came up. So I think already in terms of value chain, that was a real change versus the past. So many initiatives and many conversations. And then, of course, since the draft of the PPWR came up, in that specific moment, there was really, I would say, a rush, and trying to understand at least to figure out what to expect, when to expect, and what impact that would have in our business. I must say that the applicability of the PPWR, which is happening this year, at least applicability, I'm talking, it's on the 12th of August this year. So we have the first target, which is PFAS. So everybody in the last months has been talking PFAS, and can you please guarantee PFAS free? Do you have a PFAS free portfolio? Not only in Europe, we see this is translating also in demand initiatives abroad. Let's not forget that customers very often are customers who have a global footprint. So they are not only operating in Europe, or maybe they are exporting to Europe. So there's an interest about the obligations which are coming, already starting this year, what we see all over the world. So it's in Asia looking at what's happening in Europe. It's US looking at what's happening in Europe. Some hot topics like EPR, which is spreading quite fast in regions where there was no discussion until a few years back. So from my point of view, in terms of the proper management of packaging itself, once it becomes a waste, and this is independent from the material it is made from, I would say that the big step is the creation of PRO. So this PRO system and implementation of EPR schemes for proper discussion on this topic.
Thank you very much indeed. And questions are coming in thick and fast now, so thanks very much for those. So question really for Lewis. Lewis, I'll turn to you first on this one. How do you balance the pressure to innovate quickly with the need for thorough testing and validation, particularly when dealing with food safety requirements? Lewis.
Yeah, so within cartons, we've got some really good data sets of our packaging and barrier requirements for our shelf life. We know that within changing the carton size does need shelf life testing, but we've been doing this for quite some time. So we've got that data set and the experience, and together with our packaging supplier, we're able to simulate some shelf life testing. Plus, also as well, some of the benefits from cartons over PET is that there's no requirement to do any like pilot testing or trials or FEA testing. So we can speed up the launch of a carton over PET. Often within a carton design change, it's just keeping the same footprint but changing the height of the carton. So we can do some quick tests online, having been provided samples from our carton supplier. Often we can validate products within, say, 3 to 4 months, including a shelf life test as well, because there is no development of molds or tooling, which would be expected from PET bottles.
Thanks. Thanks. Savannah, I'll come to you in a sec. Savannah, do you want to add anything from Adelia's perspective in that?
Yeah, I agree that it's a challenge not to combine all the technical trials, homologations, and all that with the quick innovation that we need. Here, what I would add to what Luis was saying, actually, last year we were working together with the quality team and the factories team to reduce a bit these timings for approval and validation and so because we need to do it. However, can we do something in parallel? Can we shorten any timings? And actually, we did a project with the lean management way. Actually, in Idelia, we work a lot with lean manufacturing and lean management. And it was a project of 6 months. And we revised all the validation process and testing for a project. And actually, we could shorten it quite a lot. So I invite you all to really sit with our factory quality teams and really reduce and challenge them in some of the progressions during all the project life. I'm sure you will be able for sure to shorten and simplify some of it without um, taking any more risks than the ones that are really needed. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, Alina, come in, but briefly, if you would.
Yeah, sure.
The questions
Um,
are on for now.
Yeah, I mean, just from a formulator perspective, where somebody uses a lot of raw materials to come up with the final product. So each raw material that enters sort of the design kit is sort of pre-screened in terms of product safety. And this then, when the request for innovation comes up, allows you to rather quickly pull together different pieces and come up with the first formulation. The innovation challenge for us is not the product safety part because we can pre-vet this. We have very solid data, established processes, but then really how does the product behave on the actual pack, on the actual substrate? So I think it's probably less of a concern or challenge in the grand scheme of challenges because it's been in such high focus and attention for decades, not centuries, decades.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, a question collaboration. A questioner asking, are major brands collaborating for sustainable packaging solutions, or not? And what's the value in greater collaboratory efforts? Lewis,
Sorry, can you just repeat the question? I didn't quite.
are you collaborating with other brands on developing sustainable solutions?
Not with other brands as such. We're working closely with our packaging suppliers, so our PET preform suppliers, our cap suppliers, and our carton suppliers. Yeah, we're working on packaging solutions with them, and those would be rolled out across other companies and other brands, but not particularly with working with brands. No.
So, do you not see any value in pooling research? I mean, obviously know it's a competitive, it gets into possibly competitive areas, but there must be some value there in pooling research and ideas.
Yes, working with other brands, but mostly with our packaging suppliers who are the experts within their fields. And we'll be doing some like sustainability and
Sure.
designs and innovations with our packaging suppliers mostly.
Thanks, Lewis. Monica, you want to come in?
Yes, if I may, I just wanted to make a short comment in this meeting that there are many associations that we are part of. So I just put some like CFlex and Recyclas among the others, but they are not the only one. Where we see the participation of brands, we see the participation of retailers, and the most successful projects is indeed where the brands are present because they give the direct experience of what they need to make their products successful in the market, what is needed to make the solution work in the their packaging machine, what is needed in terms of their relationship with the PROs, so with the institutions, what sort of support they need. So just to make some example, if you look at what is happening also Holy Grail, which is indeed supported by the initiative of the brands, and they are kind of driving also the implementation and testing of new technologies for the right management at the end of its life of packaging.
All right, thank you. We've got several questions touching on the areas of cost, and how that's best balanced across value chains. I'd like a quick comment from everybody on that. It's something you've all alluded to. So, Savannah, just briefly, please. So, how do you find or how do you solve the solution or the challenge rather of the cost of innovation, the initial costs?
The initial cost of the packaging, you mean?
Yeah,
Sorry.
just generally, I mean, innovation cost. There's a
The
cost.
innovation cost, sorry. Yeah. So as I was saying earlier, we always believe or start from the point that sometimes any innovation will be more expensive. Well, first we need to start from the point that maybe yes or maybe not. That depends on the solution we choose. Volume is also a key player, no, in these costs. So the more volume we will have, probably, I mean, for sure, the better cost. So that's also something to talk about to sales, and at the end, if we want to launch a specific packaging or a specific product with a very specific and different packaging, we will have to overcome that cost and maybe combine it with another reduction, either in process cost, either in secondary packaging cost, either in product, in the product itself. So we have had on the past some strong challenges in terms of packaging cost because we had very basic in a specific range, and really working a bit now with the agile mentality that let's try once, let's try another time, let's look out for other solutions. And at the end, I would say that some projects that wouldn't have any future, by running around and finding different solutions. And also a key point is working with the right partners, with suppliers that really understand your needs, not only like the basic portfolio of packaging, but understanding your needs and maybe defining or developing a specific packaging. You can find a solution.
Okay,
Not
thank
always, but you can find, yeah.
you. Lewis, do you want to give a very brief answer on the cost point, please? 20 seconds if you could. I want to do one more question and then we're going to wrap up.
Yeah, so the cost of innovation mostly depends on being able to manufacture it without any like heavy capex and long development times within our manufacturing sites. So that's one of the key challenges to being able to innovate, because the machines just like working, doing their own thing day in, day out. It's making changes on the line, which is our biggest challenge.
Okay, thank you. We had a question on reuse models. Sylvana, is that something that you've looked into? Again, we're very short of time, so a very brief answer, please.
Reuse.
Yeah.
So in terms of reuse, we have two legs. One, reuse internally. We work on projects to reuse internally, especially secondary packaging between third parties and our factories. And in terms of primary packaging, we don't reuse. It's food contained, and we don't have the possibility to do. However, we know and we promote the reuse in the houses, at home, of our packs. We have a glass container that we know 90% of our consumers keep it at home as a glass. And we also have other plastic containers that we promote consumers to keep it at home and reuse it. Refilling, no, we have refill packs. I think that's a great idea. I know many companies are doing it, but I think also as companies we have the responsibility to promote that and to empower them to do it.
Okay, thank you. Lewis, same to you. What is Tropicana doing to explore the reuse market here, or reuse of packaging?
Yeah, again, it's very difficult being food contact material. So the emphasis for us would be on how to recycle and to encourage our consumers to widely recycle. And as I mentioned earlier, the new OPRL on 1st of April allows our consumers to easily recycle their cartons at home across the UK.
All right, thank you. We're coming towards the end of our time, consciously trying to finish on time. So I'd like everyone just to give me a very quick 20-second takeaway from the conversation the last hour. Alina, you go first, please. You're on mute, I'm afraid.
We were joking. That's going to happen at some point. Just making sure that that's true. I think the key takeaway is that we're all basically working towards the same goal, and that it's the details of the mechanics that we have to figure out. But I'm confident that we'll figure it out in time.
Thank you, Monica.
Yes, so apparently legislation is currently the main driver for all of us, and at the same time to trying to differentiate our solutions and our position, the brands with the consumers, and for us it's with our customers, helping them to differentiate their products with the final consumers. And what to say? It's going to be very exciting times ahead in the next few years.
Thanks, Monica. Lewis, exciting times ahead?
Yeah. So as a summary for today, is the packaging still needs to function. The packaging has a job to do. You've got the performance, you've got the barrier, you've got the supply chain, and also as well being a brand, we still need to delight our end customer and consumer.
Thanks, Lewis. And Savannah, very briefly, if
Yes,
you would.
just to finish, I think it's been a great session, a great conversation. And for me, those forums, well, we can talk to suppliers, to other companies, are very good opportunities to really challenge again our own packaging and see what other are doing. So I hope we can have many more because for me, that's a good, very good opportunity to have new ideas and look
Okay,
outside.
thank you very much. I'm going to have to draw the discussion to a close as we are out of time. Many thanks to our panels for their insight and time today. Thanks also, I've been seeing our panelists have been answering questions on the Q&A as well. So thanks very much for doing that. We will, of course, continue the conversations at the Sustainable Packaging Innovation Forum coming up on the 10th and 11th of March in Amsterdam. Savannah, Monica, and Alina, and hopefully Lewis will be joining us there. Full details, including how to secure best priced passes and the New Look Innovation Forum website. We'll link in the chat right now. We have a bunch of offers and tickets at the moment, including some exclusive webinar discounts. Do look out for details of that in your inbox shortly. We'll be in touch with webinar recordings in due course for you to share or to listen again. But for now, I hope you found the past hour useful. I've been Ian Welsh. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.